Hey, Good News family. This is Tana Heineman, the host of our Now What podcast. This is where we unpack Sunday's message and we talk about how to practically apply it to our everyday lives. I love that you're here with us, and I love that we get the opportunity to spend more time with our pastors and have them teach us even more what the Word has to say about our everyday lives. We learn from Jesus that one of the best ways to grow is in community together. So join us as we unpack Sunday's message. Hey, Good News family. We are so happy to be with you again this week, and I have the lovely Pastor Greg with us today as he's getting a drink of his water.
Yeah, I didn't know the question was coming.
That I was going to greet you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I thought I better do it right away in the beginning because I'm about to say it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Happiest time of the year, would you say?
I do like it.
Okay.
Like if I could have twinkle lights all over all year round and have it be socially acceptable, I would do it. Like twinkle lights make me happy.
Really?
Yeah. I will try to figure out as little lighting extra that we need in the house as possible in the month of December, just so we can live by the light of the Christmas tree.
Nice.
Do you like Christmas?
Sure. I'm so weird.
Do you love it or survive it?
Somewhere in the middle between those two.
All right.
Yeah. I love seeing other people experience stuff that they enjoy.
Okay.
I really, really like
I was going to say, you're an emotional guy, so there's
yeah.
got to be some emotional connection to Christmas if you're in any way emotional, I think. Like just, so it's like the awe of watching people or celebrating people or it's the prettiness of the ambiance. Something triggers you to be
It's just that other
connected.
people enjoy it.
Okay,
So, yeah.
And if we were going to celebrate it for the right reason, not the twinkle lights, you know, it's the advent of Jesus, then we already know he's been here, so we get the celebration of the impending second advent of Jesus coming. So that's pretty cool.
Nice reference to Second Advent.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I try to be smart when I'm with you. I have to really
great.
dig deep. I have to really dig deep, but I got it. I worked on that this
love
week. Anyways, okay, let's get serious for just a moment. The bishop, aka Pastor Mark, he is officially retired.
Yeah.
Which, a side note, we did a bonus podcast with Pastor Mark.
Oh, nice.
And it was lovely. Sarah and I got to interview him and just his journey with Jesus, his journey here. I think you guys are going to really love it. So that's going to drop in early January. But today is like your first official day with Pastor Mark gone, and you're officially in charge.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Are you
I'm
nervous?
drunk with power.
There's a lot of power here to give at Good News Church.
Yeah. So it's overwhelming.
I mean, it's rather big shoes to step into.
Yeah, I think his history and stuff, those are the real things. So yeah. And so questions of first question is sustain, and then it's try to grow and see what we can be.
Yeah, and you know what? He really grew into the position too. He didn't.
I believe it.
He didn't start where he's at now, and but it's super cool to watch. And I think what I took away even from recording with him was that he just has made a practice of listening to God, even in the simplest things. Where I asked him like, "How do you hear the voice of God?" And he's like, "All of a sudden, I'll get a nudge of like, bring your umbrella today, even when there's no rain in the forecast." And what do you know? It ends up raining, and I have my umbrella.
Wow.
He's like, "That's how I practice listening to God." I'm like, that is what I've done for years and thought I was just a dork. Do not respond to that.
Well, it's not a dork, just weird.
It's weird.
But
no, it was really, I just want to be in tune. So if you're telling me to bring my umbrella, I don't know if it's you, but I'm going to practice it being you.
Yeah.
So that way, you know, you can tell me something as simple as bring your umbrella.
Yeah.
And something as profound as Greg needs prayer.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Okay. Another interesting thing to tie to Pastor Mark is this week was the 10th and final sermon of the Kingdom Minded series.
Yeah.
And I was actually in a meeting when Pastor Jason kind of had this moment with Jesus about this Kingdom Minded series and it being 10 weeks and just mapping it out. And he just kind of had you guys don't know how significant this is to a specific prayer I've been praying. So to get to watch that from the beginning until today has been super cool. I love that. The kindness of God to just give us little moments that lets you know you're heading in the right direction. But anyways, so this portion of scripture that you were given for this final lesson, I didn't know this, actually has end times connection, which is Pastor Mark's absolute favorite. So I just kind of loved the coincidence, if you will,
Yeah.
of the content for yesterday.
Yeah, I agree.
Or for Sunday. But okay, explain then this end times connection about this parable and how it ties in together with end times.
Yeah, I just had a thought that's funny to me.
Tell me.
What if I spent the rest of the podcast doing like short answers?
You'll drive me nuts.
It's just random things to entertain myself.
That's great.
So
Don't
I won't
do
do
that to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's this middle ground, right, between droning on
I know.
and saying something.
I know.
So.
And I'm trying to tell you all the things that stood out
Yeah.
that I learned, and
Say
so I
this.
talked way
Yeah.
too long. That's a hint
No,
that I
you're
talked
great.
way too long.
No,
Okay,
I think
go ahead.
it's great. So how does this, I think we can see it in the end times idea because of the direct question that the disciples ask, that his closest followers ask. How do we know? Right at chapter 24, verse 3, somewhere
Yep.
in there.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know when this is all going to happen? That the end's going to come,
Yep.
and in a sense, the world's going to end.
Yep.
Jesus' response is, yeah, that's going to happen. And he gives, this is what it's going to look like, days of Noah kind of stuff, towards the end of the world. Then he tells parables, though, that I think, so if I think in a timeline of here's end of the world, here's where we're now, he's saying a little bit further is going to be, you're going to have to spend time without me. I mean, it's all wrapped up in parable, but it's a bunch of parables that say, Master's going on a trip. This guy's leaving. This guy's leaving.
Yeah.
And it ends this whole section, this Olivet Discourse, with, oh, and they're coming to kill me.
Yep.
So a big part of the contextual point is Jesus saying, look, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I just taught you some really important stuff about between right now and the end, which is all the time that you're going to have to do this stuff that's going in the parables, which is take responsibility, be aware, care for others, these kind of things that are going on.
Yeah. So I've never read it. We read all those stories, and we don't tend to pay attention.
Right.
That for those 2 chapters, everything is really fitting in together, and he's
Exactly.
basically still responding to the disciples' question, "How are we going to know when it's the end?" And he's like, "I'm the master in the stories.
Right.
I'm leaving."
Yep.
There's different things that the master did and empowered the servants, different expectations he had. Again, I'm the master. I'm leaving. This is what you're going to have to do. You don't get to know the end, but you do need to know that I'm leaving. And the way that I'm leaving is that they're killing me.
Yeah.
Let's have lunch.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I
But
cannot imagine
along
being
with
them.
it, claiming that he's going to be back,
Yeah.
and yet he's still leaving. And so
Yes.
it's if you're one of the disciples and you tend toward really believing him, like let's say you really were with him and understood what you're saying, which they didn't seem to be,
Right.
which we wouldn't either.
No.
Man, this is an emotional roller coaster that,
Heck yeah.
that you're going through, and a lot of
Yes.
confusion.
Yes.
So it's a big thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine processing all of that he just, says in what we would probably consider a lengthy conversation. Like,
Yeah.
this wasn't over days, and even if it was over a couple days, and he's just documenting it all kind of at one time, but still everything's building on itself.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to pay
Yes.
attention. Wait, they're going to kill you. Wait, you're leaving. Wait, we have responsibility. How are we going to do this
Yeah.
without you here? Like, just
Absolutely. And I think
big
that's
deal.
the great read. And one of my particular interests, probably close to a passion, is that people not just hear me teach, but they are taught how to do the work on their own. And it doesn't mean that I have an expectation that everyone's going to do all this work to try and understand every bit of scripture and stuff. That I think that's a really cool idea, but for those who will, just given the tools to be able to do it. And so in this case, it's recognizing, where does this part of this gospel, where did the writer, the author, Matthew, what was the point he was trying to make in this section?
Yep.
So, yeah, there's a point in the whole story. Why did Matthew write this way? And you realize that he's writing to a Jewish population and things like that. And I'm not saying what I'm saying right now is necessarily relevant to where we're going with this particular podcast. I'm
Sure.
just saying what I hope people continue to get is how to read things, and that, yeah, we can we can do stuff with this talent story that we're going to talk about. And I mentioned this in the sermon too, but we can do stuff with this, but let's make sure that we're on firm ground so that we're not going to do stuff with it or reference it in ways it was never meant to be.
Yep.
And so getting a hold of some of the stuff that you're asking right now is some of the steps that allow us to do good work in interpretation and understand what he's doing.
That's good. So this being the final session of the Kingdom Minded series, I went back and looked over the past 10 weeks and kind of see if I could summarize where we're at. I don't even know if you can remember them all, but I saw, okay, Jesus is trying to teach them that they're a part of God's upside down kingdom, and they have wonderful rights by being part of that kingdom, but also they have responsibilities.
Yep.
And those responsibilities are not only to represent the king and the kingdom well, but also to steward well what the king gives them.
Okay.
And that they have a responsibility of, they have a responsibility of in the kingdom to tell others about this kingdom and bring them in.
Yeah.
Right? It's not closed gate kingdom. It's like invite
Right.
people in. It's all nations.
And I would also add that it's not just that, though.
Okay. Tell me.
Not as a criticism, but as a observation of our style of church. When we use the word fruit, we'll see fruit in your life. We often seem to mean that we're going to go and evangelize, and fruit means people are going to get saved.
Sure.
I agree, but I don't think that's the only fruit. Think of an orchard with multiple different types of trees. And so the fruit, and I've said this multiple times even from the pulpit, is this love, joy, peace, patience stuff, and not to demean it or put it down. This is also the fruit of the kingdom.
Yeah.
And these are it's not that you just see somebody getting people saved and that's the person to emulate. That's cool, but the person who's demonstrating love and joy and peace and patience, these are the works of the Spirit within us. The result then is that people see a changed life and want to be involved. Our willingness, my belief about evangelism is within this entire process, we're constantly willing to share and wanting to share the story of what has influenced us and transformed us and brought us here. So
I think that's really important, because also thinking of one of our rights as part of the kingdom is that we're ambassadors for the king. And I think of an ambassador as somebody who, I might not be able to get to the king, but the ambassador is a close second. Like he carries his heart, his attributes, what his passions, what he values, I value as the ambassador, whatever. And and it's like you said, it is a representation of the king, seeing that fruit produced in and through us, not just how successful am I at bringing people in.
Right.
I need to represent the king well.
Right. And that's not to put anything down. It's simply to say, let's make sure our understanding of what fruit is well-rounded.
100% agree with you. So then even in this last one of the last couple messages actually of stewarding well what the king gives us, then what I hear, again, my personality shines through this one. If I'm just trying to get a free ride off the king, then I'm not going to be ready when the king or the master returns.
Yeah, based on fruit, right?
Right.
If you take his money and metaphorical money and then go spend it on only the things you want, there's a day coming in which you're going to have to report what you did with what you were delegated to.
We like to try to forget that part's going to exist.
It's a little weird, but especially, and always has been, but relevant for me in this current position and was relevant for Pastor Mark is that, this isn't our money. It's not even the church's money.
Right.
It was people's money, and now it's God's money. And that relationship between those two things is, at least for my understanding of him, and definitely for me, is I would never do anything dishonoring to that. So I think there's a respect with how we handle all these things, and within honor of those. Yeah.
I think even just in the humanism of humanity.
Yeah.
Of there is I talk about this is kind of one of my mantras about we all want the Savior King. We don't want the Lord Master King.
Yeah.
And
that's one of Angie's things
so
too.
is
Yeah.
it? I knew I liked her. And so we want the Savior, but don't start telling me I need to steward this or change this or fruit here or whatever. I just want to be saved.
Yeah.
Rescued.
Yeah. But another example would be, think of your kids as having been given to you. They're not yours. They're God's. You are the steward, the one who has been delegated to care for.
Yeah.
Is what a steward is. And in and of yourself, you have no power. You've been delegated power, and your job is to take care of it well.
Which we have no ability to do well without him.
Right,
Little
because the knowledge of how to do it is from him. Now, if we'll pay attention, there's many things that indicate we can just sort of look around. This is a almost silly example, but you know how to navigate gravity, for example. I know this is weird, but when we go down steps, you have to use the steps and not just jump over the railing and, right?
Try it, right.
Right. You get the concept that the steps are there to help you navigate gravity.
Sure.
So just through sense, you're able to figure out a really basic piece of wisdom.
That's true.
And so if you want your kids to live, there's things you don't do. There's things you do because you're trying to manage this thing well.
Yeah.
So now there's a difference, though, between wanting your kid to just survive and your child to, for me, I remember a point in time when I realized I wasn't raising boys. I was raising men. And it wasn't that they hit an age in which they're men. No, I realized that I wasn't trying to create 18-year-old boys.
Yeah.
I was, when they were 11, I realized, oh no, I actually want to, the goal is to create men of God that are able to manage their own lives.
Right.
And it changes how you do things. It's not just, is there food on the table? Sometimes, though, experiences in your life is that hectic that it can become that. I get that. But the wisdom that is obvious is to begin to understand that you're trying to develop people into something. So anyway.
So let's transition to the story from Sunday was Matthew 25. And the master is leaving, and he gives 3 of his servants 3 different monetary amounts to steward while he's gone, right?
Yep.
And 2 of them double their money. 1 of them buries it in the ground to keep it safe.
Yeah.
And he's super proud of himself. I kept it all. I didn't lose any of it. But it actually loses him money because it doesn't grow any interest. It doesn't, right? It does nothing but just sat there.
Yeah.
So you pointed out to us that this is not primarily a story about using money or our talents, if we wanted to even use that word, our skills, our giftings. So what is Jesus teaching them in this story?
Multiple ways to work on this. A guy named N.T. Wright pointed out something that made instant sense. It's one of those that you realize, I'm already doing this, but him clarifying this for me was my words. Don't force the story into doing things that it's not meant to do.
Good.
So, for example, if we started going, well, who's the master? Let's talk about the aspects of the master and stuff. Can you do that? Yeah. But is that what the story's doing? No. Well, what are the aspects of the servants? Can you? Yeah. It's not what the story's doing. So back to your question. Help me one more time.
So what is the point of the story?
Yes, yes. So enough avoiding it.
I gave you time to think.
No, the real simple version is that he's saying, look, you don't know when I'm coming back, so do the work you know to do. To me, there is an implied trust in every one of these, simply by the amounts that we talked about, that 1 talent, 15 years worth of wages. That's a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
And so if you're being delegated that, are you trusted? I mean, exactly what I said in the sermon, this is a big deal. And so when we, in our minds as Americans, and it doesn't mean this isn't a rip on us, it's just we're given the numbers 5, 2, and 1. That's insignificant. When we start going, oh, I think we're talking about 5 million, 2.5, and I don't know, or 1.5 and then $750,000. Oh,
now it has our attention.
Right. It suddenly became significant for us. And so he's not even saying, he's saying you have responsibility.
Yeah. Don't be lazy.
Don't be lazy. Don't live a life afraid.
Yeah.
Of what you've been delegated. You've been taught how to do this. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been given it. Go and do that. So
that's the biggest thing I heard on Sunday was the guy with only one talent. It doesn't mean that what he has is nothing. We just talked about it. It was $750,000 in today's economy. The master wouldn't have even given it to him, the one talent, if he didn't trust and believe he was capable of doing something with it.
Yeah.
Like he's not important. And nowhere in the story is it about measuring the amount, because then you look back and you see the master equally celebrated the other two with the 5 and the 2. They both doubled it. But the second guy, he had less than half of what the first guy had.
Yeah.
And he was equally celebrated.
Yeah.
It's not about the amount.
Yep.
It is about what?
Do what you know to do with what you've been given, what you've been challenged with. And so given's the word, but I think what you've been delegated, what you've been given responsibility for, what you have been told to steward.
Yeah.
So this sense of responsibility is incredibly high. And the consequences are, I almost said really high, but they're based on, did you simply obey? This isn't, a misreading of it comes away with the master as a bad guy because he was mean to the third person. And in fact, the third guy absolutely refused to do the bare minimum. You
use that example about imagining if you were on a team where everyone was accomplishing, you were talented enough to be there. You got put on the team.
Yeah.
But you chose not to work up to what you can do.
Yeah.
What would happen to your spot on the team?
Right.
And that's what Jesus is talking about, of step into what I already have said you are able to accomplish and just do it.
Yeah. And this is so common. I mean, we do this every day. I mean, there's a graceless way to do it. And the graceless way is you never give someone a chance to figure out if they have the talent or expect things from them that they haven't been trained for. It's on a football reference, it's like picking out the running back and deciding they're going to be the kicker now, and then kicking them off the team because they don't make a 50-yard field goal.
Right.
Wait a minute. If you haven't trained them, they don't. That's not what they do.
Right.
That's silly. But this isn't what we're talking about with the story. So
then why don't we show up? Why? What are reasons behind why we don't steward well? We don't show up on the team.
I think there are the reasons that we deal with today that we're aware of today. We know there's complications, maybe with your personal history. You've got trauma. You got things that lean you toward being afraid of taking risks, risk aversion. And so that list is, I think, almost limitless about reasons. What we're talking about in the story is having received everything that can answer those things. We just refuse, and then don't go. I'm thinking of a Moses story where he all but refused, where God's saying, go do this. And in the end, after, I want to say 3 questions, Moses says, send someone else. And God says, no, you're going. Moses still obeyed. And so that it's not that example actually is a version of a good response, not the best response.
Right, not the best, but he got there.
But he obeyed eventually. It's telling your kid to take out the trash and they don't, and then you're unhappy, but eventually they just do. And so it didn't happen in the time frame you wanted.
Right.
But all right, we're going to have to work on immediacy here maybe.
Right.
But in that, a good parent realizes, A good parent. One of the parenting possibilities is that you realize, oh, maybe I need to start talking about timeliness or immediacy or so many things. I don't want to go way off on down that trail. But so someone who doesn't, we're talking about given every opportunity, every talent, every whatever is necessary, just goes no. And why wouldn't they? It's hard to get past just rebellion. He said the story says that he says, I was afraid. You're somebody who sows where or reaps where he didn't sow and things like that. But look, you've been around him all this time.
Right.
Rather than learning from him, you've decided to be intimidated by him. There's only so much we can do to make someone comfortable. So anyway, it's not what we want to be careful with this story is it's not a let's examine this through a psychoanalysis kind of thing. It's let the story simply be what the story does and what its point was, which is take responsibility for the things you've been given. If you don't, that's on you.
And just to hit one more time on even just our current culture is this tricky place we're in of take responsibility but I have trauma or but I have this or whatever, and it's not devaluing the reality of those things, but Jesus is still saying, but you got to take responsibility. You got to do something.
The expectation isn't double whatever it is. The expectation is obey. That's it. This guy didn't even obey.
Right.
He went and hid it.
Yep.
So there's other metaphors that we could use to try and explain that. But this is what the story is saying, is that the final guy is the wrong guy.
Yeah.
If we're coming away from the story going, oh, the master's the wrong guy. No, that's not the point of the story.
Right.
So we need to come up with an interpretation that actually ends in how this story is actually trying to move us rather than... No, you're right.
He had made them ready. That's why he made. That's why he determined them capable for this. Is he had made them ready. Yeah. I'm even thinking about the disciples and all the time that Jesus invested into them before he's going to go away, and then he tells them. We were talking offline. I need to look it up. I can't remember if Jesus at his ascension is the first time that he mentions, but I'm going to be leaving you someone even better and leaving you the Holy Spirit. I don't remember when he says if that's the first time or what, but still, the fact remains. They do have the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, and it exponentially empowers them to boldly and courageously follow through with what they've been given.
Oh yeah, his teaching them. I'm not a fan at all of the Jesus is a leader's leader and stuff. But it's we trying to force things to do things that they weren't doing. That said, we've got him sending out disciples 2 by 2 to go do ministry. We've got him, it seems like an expectation when they go, hey, there's all these people here. What are we going to feed them? And his response is, you feed them.
Right. He's empowering.
I've already, you see me do this, go do it.
Right.
That's what it takes. Yeah. And if you're like, oh, I can't. Well, you're arguing with God at that point. You're back to the Moses example. You're arguing with God. But I have a stutter. I have this. I'm, as far as, to me, I like making fun of it, but I'm not tall. I'm stocky, overweight. Currently, part of my face is still broken and everything else. What do I have? I'm just really curious, and I'm willing to tell people about it. I'm willing to try and figure it out and do the work. And some people think I'm smart, and I'm like, I'm not dumb. My gift and talent is mostly that I'm super curious, and I really do want to know things. So I feel like that's what I've been given, and so what am I going to do with that? I go and learn things.
Yeah. You learn things, and you keep asking questions, and then you share it with us and help us feel free and empowered to ask questions too.
I hope. Yeah.
And some of them are dumb questions, and some of them are just they're just worth. If it helps us understand Jesus and his word and apply it to our lives better, those are good questions.
Yeah.
And you can even ask the questions of, I don't think I believe this.
Yeah.
Just keep asking the questions.
Yeah.
Those are completely fair.
Yeah. I once had a conversation. don't remember if I told you. No, I did. I think anyway. It doesn't matter. One of my son's friends had decided that he was an atheist at the time, and so not to attack. I was just curious. It's like, oh, why? What led you to that? Mm-hmm. And he told me and everything. I was like, huh. You know what? Can I help you out? I'd like to see if I can make you a better atheist. Because everything you said is,
Let's work on your argument.
Right. If you're going to, to me, you're implying, if you're like, oh, I'm an atheist, you're implying some like, oh, I made an intellectual decision to kind of be this. I guess it doesn't have to be that, but the ones I've met have intellectual reasons, and disagreements and things like that. It's rarely we're honest enough to say, I just don't feel like it. I don't like it. And so, so let me help you figure some of that stuff out. It's a little weird response. I don't know what he's doing now, but I was just like, I think there's better things you could hold on to. So,
I love it so much. Now I'm so intrigued. I want to know what you said. Okay, I want to think about this fulfilling responsibility in the kingdom and doing it on time kind of concept. We were talking about the other stories that tied in with this conversation that Jesus was having with the disciples. And when you go back and look at them, that Matthew 24 through Matthew 26 section, it's all about responsibility and expectation. He has like servants managing the other servants, making sure they get fed. That's not, I don't believe in you. That is, I believe in your ability, and I need you to do this. People's lives depend on you doing what I've empowered you to do.
Yep.
That's like in Matthew 24. He even talks about a fig tree bearing fruit, and what good is the fig tree if he's not bearing fruit, and what good the fig tree is when there's fruit being born, bared, something like that. The bridesmaids with the oil. Again, there was responsibility with a task that they had in order to be ready for his return. The return of the master. So if it's about fulfilling responsibility in the kingdom, I think about what you already kind of alluded to with parenting teenagers or parenting kids. It's like, do your chore on time or you don't go. You've been empowered with you've been delegated certain responsibilities as being part of the Nate and Tana kingdom. And therefore, these are the expectations.
For us, our metaphor was team. We're a team. And we meant it. It wasn't, here's someone else's metaphor that we're going to apply to ours. Is that, no, this is the concept I have. We do this together. We're, for some people, the metaphor is going to be family or whatever works for you. But absolutely. So that you can communicate it and so figuring it out. Anyway, I think in line with what you're talking about, I had a soccer coach, my high school soccer coach. Basically, if you got in the game and if at any point you were walking, you were pulled out. So even if the ball was nowhere near you, you needed to be jogging. You needed to be moving and head on a swivel, just aware and things like that. Walking meant to him, you're tired. And for when we were playing, we had unlimited subs. Someone here, maybe someone's listening knows anything about soccer. And so he would just pull you. So if you wanted to stay in the game, you kept jogging. You learned how to catch your breath while jogging. And so either you live up to the standard or you're out of the game.
That's right.
That has nothing to do with grace or any other, Coach was a mean guy, but that part didn't demonstrate that. So,
So I'm just thinking about how we hear this message on Sunday. And again, certain of us, our personalities are like, yes, I have a responsibility. God gave me his everything. God, for some reason, thinks that we're a good representation of him. What? What? Why don't you just represent yourself? People would be a lot less messy or something, like.
He did.
Well, you're right. You're right. But he's empowered us to continue to take that. Like there's such a great responsibility. And I don't want to take that lightly, but, or yet I should say, not everybody thinks that same way. So you and I tend to think a little bit in the same way on this one of, I guess I want this message and this whole series to ignite something, a responsibility and a desire to, be worthy of the King, I guess. And live out what you've been empowered to live out. Steward well.
And we talked earlier that there's another parable in another section about, tells a story of a wedding banquet where no one will come. And so he goes, fine, go out into the byways and in the highways and byways and find anybody who will come. And in that second invitation, he not only says, I'm going to feed you, but he gives them clothes to wear. And so they, the banquet's going on, the wedding's happening, and the runner or the father of the owner of everything that's going on sees somebody who shows up in just their regular clothes. Basically, having been given what to wear, the opportunity to participate in this stuff, just flat out ignored the instruction.
Yep.
And so the result was, you're thrown out. Who's this on? The banquet master, the father of the bride, or however that's set up? No, it's on the person who didn't dress right.
Yeah.
And that metaphor is just fantastic. It's the responsibility doesn't lie. The responsibility lied or belonged to the master until it became delegated to the responsibility of the individual. The grace, man, is all of that. You get everything.
Yep. That's the grace.
Yeah. That's so clearly it. Do you deserve it? No. We found you on the highway.
Yep.
You know?
And I eliminated one of the primary I'm not going to the party excuses. I don't have anything to wear.
Everything is set up.
I gave you everything you need.
Literally everything.
Yeah.
All you had to do was get dressed.
Why does he not get dressed?
And at that point, who cares? You've decided. You have decided in your heart that you're just going to violate one of the most obvious things.
Yeah. And yet still expect that you're going to get into the wedding feast.
In my mind, he's got turkey leg in hand, just chowing away, and he's still confused while he's being thrown out. Why are you throwing me out?
Yeah.
The job at that point is not to explain to the person who absolutely refuses to get it what he did wrong, because even upon explanation, you're still not going to understand it.
I am literally on camera overcome with sadness for the person who thinks like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it, but it just is heartbreaking to me in this story for the man throwing the party and for the guy who thought he could just come and show up in his shorts and t-shirt. Yeah.
And our response, there's so many ways to put this together, but I think our response, and you're not doing this, I'm just talking.
Yeah.
Our response has to be careful, because to me, we're always in that situation. Will we get dressed in a sense?
Yeah.
Will we take responsibility? We've been given 1 talent, 5, 1 million, doesn't matter. Will we pay attention to what we've been taught and do something with it?
Yeah.
There's times of every day, and I'm also not, I don't think this is a go feel guilty or anything else. Man, flip this. This is opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, it's good.
It's this simple. Hey, if you walk down this hallway, there's a bucket of money there. If you could go and just take that, that would be fantastic. And you go, wait a minute, I don't believe that. I get that, but I'm telling you it's true. How do I know that? There's 2 other people that I've given a bucket of money. So trust me, go get the bucket of money. You're going to be great. And we go, no. And it's a silly metaphor, but this is what we're simply talking about. But this happened. This is for us every day, all the time. So when if we think we see somebody who's refusing, it's actually not even our business and to bother. If we can instruct, if we can lead, then great. But that third servant could have talked to the other 2 who were doing well.
Yeah.
He had whatever training it took to be given a large amount of money, or given that responsibility. At some point, you've got to actually step into it.
You transitioned at some point in the sermon, and for some reason, I don't have enough notes here that now my mind is going blank. You talked about, so then we have a responsibility, and that responsibility is to bring hope.
Yeah.
But I can't remember how you got there. I'm so sorry.
No. I think it's the responsibility of the story. That what has Jesus done? What's been given to us? And it's his story. To give a metaphor for this, Angie and I had interesting childhoods, let's go that way, and interesting lives. And but we don't want that for our kids. But we do want kids that are humble. How can I do that? Well, my kids need a story. They need a narrative that gives meaning to whatever it is we're doing. What we have in Jesus is a story, something that gives meaning to this entire thing. And sorry, my mind's running different ways. I'm like, so in my head, I'm going, this is a no. Anyway, I don't know if that made sense, but where I'm trying to organize thoughts, but
go ahead.
That if you, I gave the example that when about 20 years ago, my birth father passed away, and I inherited his stuff, and I actually inherited half of an adult bookstore.
Yes, crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
That's shocking.
I get to decide, though, is that my story? Fundamentally, it is part of my story, but it's actually the part that points to this flip, that God has chosen something of nothing and said, I'm going to make it something. And he's the one who decides what that, the significance of those things. I'm not really worried about that. But if I decide that, and so Christ became the fundamental, I'll call it a pivot point, or the center of my story. If instead that father, Joe, was the center of my story, it changes everything about how I respond to things. If I think what he did was bad, then now I'm shameful. I want to hide these things. If I think it was good, now I start participating in those things. So the center of that story, the where meaning comes from, is unbelievably important. And so trying to give that to my kids, something that I didn't have, which was a meaningful, where am I from and why? This is among the many things that the gospel does, is gives us a center and a reason to go and be. And from that being, acting. So I don't know if that answered the question, and that I think kind of theoretically. So I'm hoping that it gains some purchase in what we can do. It's more that I'm trying to give some what can I call it? Underpinning some. Everything's metaphors, right? Some, not just weight to it, but some grounding, something that our roots are deep, and they can be deep, even using some of the kingdom stuff where we're talking about where your roots. But those deep roots come from really being well centered in Jesus, well focused on Jesus, knowing that he is this soil that we're planted in. And the challenges we go through are actually causing our roots to be deeper if we'll go through them. Doesn't mean you have to enjoy them.
And that is that ultimate hope that you were talking about. That
Absolutely.
is the responsibility we have, is we're bringing hope into whatever situation we're in, and that hope of the kingdom, purpose.
And I'm thinking about tree suddenly. My wife, actually for Mother's Day, I gave her a lemon tree. She wanted it. So it was
like, wow, did you think of that on your own, a lemon tree? But no,
I can't remember how it got. Anyway, she called it Liz, for Liz Lemon from a TV show. That was
and
cute.
called it, that makes me a little nervous. Did the lemon tree die? Did Liz die?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Liz. All right.
But it did finally produce fruit, and it produced, I don't know, like 3 or 4 tiniest lemons. I mean, but they were actual lemons. I mean, they really do. Now, if we were to go to Florida and find a lemon grove, there'd be trees that are producing, I don't know how many trees, bunches of lemons.
Sure.
We're not expecting from Liz to produce what this orchard is producing. We're expecting Liz to grow into this. And the story breaks when I tell you Liz is dead. But,
right, we'll pretend she didn't die.
Yeah, but inside our house, Liz is never going to grow this.
Yeah.
If that was the goal, it would have to be moved
Yep.
to that and become a part of that thing. And so who you're around, there's so many metaphors here,
Yeah.
so many things that you begin to understand. Look, this isn't to think that this is an end story. It's about end times and stuff, but to say here's the story about these 3 servants and now we need nothing more.
Right.
Not the point of the story.
Right.
Point is responsibility. You've been given something, you've been taught how to use it, do it. If you've been given something, you don't know how to use it, let's find people who do.
You closed with Romans 12:12. Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer.
Yeah.
And so to get it out of, Christian Bible terms, you just kind of rearrange some words. Remember your hope.
Yeah.
Be patient when things are hard. Keep connected to your hope through prayer.
Yeah.
And that is how you just keep stewarding what you've been given, walking it out.
Yeah.
Because like you said, this isn't the end of the story. We've got a whole bunch to live before even the second advent.
Yeah. Or we don't.
Or we don't. But until that is determined, we have great responsibility and privilege.
Yeah. Because the length of time doesn't matter.
Right.
At all.
Right.
None. What if he comes back tomorrow?
And the amount doesn't matter.
If the world ends tomorrow, what would you do? I hope in my dream world, nothing different. Dream world.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, what would I do?
Yeah.
All right. I want to end today with the way you started Sunday. You told the story about the schoolhouse. And I love it because if we all lived from this place, it would directly affect our response to this message and then how we live it out moving forward. So the windows of the school are dirty, and I can't remember who's asking. Somebody's asking, and why?
Well, it was the person who started the school, Dr. Wood, who said to his friend, "Hey, do you know one of our biggest maintenance issues?" And it was, "Well, we have dirty windows."
That's right. So, that's right. Okay. And then why are the windows dirty? What does he say?
Because the students have heard about Jesus is going to return for them, and they're every day for at least some time they're looking at the windows to see if this is the moment, if this is the day. Maybe he's coming now.
I love it.
Yeah.
Being a hopeless romantic, can you just picture little kids and how they look out windows?
Oh, yeah.
And invariably, it's a sixth sense that they know that you just cleaned the window. Between dogs and children, they know, and they can't just look out the window. They smoosh their face, nose distorted, mouth. Like I had all my grandkids were here over Thanksgiving, and at one point, a couple of us looked up across the room, and you could see a perfect set of lip prints on the windows about just the height. Like, what and which kid did it? And lo and behold, the day later, that same child was doing the exact same thing. We're like, oh, it's you.
Yeah.
But just how children look in amazement, in wonder out the window. And if we could live from that space, it would directly affect what we do.
Yeah.
How we hear messages, how we respond to the word that we read in the morning or during our day, or even how we engage with God throughout our day. Yeah. Because we're fully expecting he's coming back. And I want to be ready. Yeah. I want to be ready, and I want to be able to say, I did all I just kept working. I kept doing, thank you for the gifts you gave me, what you delegated to me, my 152 talents or whatever. And this is what I did with it.
Yeah, and I would say that's part of the teaching that has come, is we call it childlike faith, but it's almost become cliche, so it loses its meaning.
That's why I didn't say it. I agree 100%.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it's not true. It's this simplicity, this...
There's a purity in it.
There's a purity. There's an immediacy of joy.
Yep.
I remember going to Disney with 5-year-olds, and we have a picture of Gage just lighting up when he saw the giant castle. Yeah. And for me, this is just that childlike response. Yes. And then as we go, let's not lose the childlike response while this is going on. It's one of the reasons I love people who laugh easy. I don't, for whatever reason, but I love people who laugh at these, not just because it makes me feel good because I think I'm funny, but because they bring easy joy. It's fun. I love watching other people experience great emotion. So that's a whole other discussion about why. But so back to it. Actually, the question you just asked or before, which is hope. How did you connect it? It's this. It's what do we have is this story. This story is a story of hope. Hope about now, hope about where we're going, about the point of everything. Man, there's so much terrible without some hope. Why keep going?
Right.
But instead, this story tells us that there's a way through. Things are broken, but we have a fix. And that's the hope we have. That's the hope we can share. And it's incredibly important.
So really good. I just think, reminding people that Romans 12:12, remember your hope, be patient when things are hard.
Yeah.
Keep connected to that hope through prayer, which is just talking to God about, I'm struggling with hope today, or I'm celebrating in hope today. Just being honest with him and just really asking ourselves, how clean are the windows?
Yeah.
And if I really am looking for him, then I'd be busy and the windows would be dirty because I know like he's on his way. He's on his way.
You're prepping your house for someone to come.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's exciting. It's a little bit of work sometimes, but it's exciting.
Absolutely.
So
It's
a reason to get up. You're right. I have loved this Kingdom Minded series. I just really hope that our church family is really grasping the just the weightiness of you are loved and chosen by a king who thinks the world of you, regardless of where you're at. But he also loves us so much that he's going to challenge us to become who he's made us to be, because he's so great.
Yeah. And I would encourage you, and anybody who's listening too, but weirdly on a podcast specifically to you because you're a leader, allow people to be at different stages that they're at. Some of the people that you have so much desire that they really get it, they may be prepping. It may be a point at which they get this metaphorical talent and they get the responsibility and they're ready for it. It may not be now. Sometimes you go, no, it is now, and you go. So do that because you're such a strong leader. But also, I think this is where grace does come in. The kind of grace that God gives is recognizing and working hard to recognize those different places that people are at, able to legitimately recognize between immaturity and not ready. And man, through that, I think we find ways to love, and sometimes it's tough love, sometimes it's just keep going, you're going to be okay. I think it's he's given us enough to be able to do this. So.
Which I'm sure for you too, you can think back on your own journey, and I'm really grateful for the people who kicked me in the pants, and I'm really grateful for the people who just bit their lip and said, just keep going.
Right.
Just, you're almost there. They want to smack me, but they were kind and gave me space.
And bluntly, even more people who either didn't care or were wrong. We get all types, and so trying to learn from any of them. So it can be tempting to just listen to the people that are nice to you and thrilled with you. But I think you don't want to overdo the negatives, but listen to them too, so that we can refine and get sharp.
Swift kick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time this week. Congratulations again on.
Thank you.
I'm not ready to call you Bishop Greg. You're gonna have to step into that title. So
it doesn't fit.
Yeah. Thanks, Pastor Greg. Thank you guys for being here, and we will chat again next time.
Awesome.
Thanks again for joining us today. We would love for you to tell others about the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to it too, because this will help others find out about it. If you missed it before, we love to hear from you. So if you have any stories to tell about how the message impacted you, or maybe you have a question or comment, make sure you email us at podcast@goodnews.church. Y'all, this is my favorite day of the week. So go give away what you just learned, and we'll chat again next time.